Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and today I am following up on the Manakete video. Today we are going over a Manakete tier list of a sort. Now this might not be exactly what you're used to seeing in terms of tier list focus, so let me explain. This is not tiering S rank, A rank, B rank, C rank, whatever. I'm not gonna listen to anyone in the comments who says, oh, you should move this person up a tier, down a tier, whatever. Tell me specifically where you feel like they are instead of where I put them, and not just up a tier, down a tier, because that is meaningless in this context. As you can see, why are you on this list is at the top. This includes Emblem Tiki, Nel Rafal, and the Corins. These three whom I did not list on my Manakete Unit Design 101 video because I didn't realize they were technically Manaketes because I don't have the Engage DLC. Thank you. So, Engage Tiki, Emblem Tiki, isn't a unit. Why is she on this list? Why should I talk about her? The most interesting things she does are not related at all to the fact that she is a Manakete, and her making other units Manaketes I don't feel is super important in the context of Engage, for reasons specifically with Nell and Rafal. Okay, yes, they have Dragonstones. What does that do? It gives them an option to attack with either magic or physical, or I guess it depends on what stone you're using, at half enemy defense. So basically they attack at half enemy defense when they're using a Dragonstone. And that's it. And if I remember right, the stone either can't be forged or is limited to forging, and it's only limited to that specific use. And so while in Engage that gives them a different option, it doesn't necessarily impose a lot on them as units, particularly in the fact that if I remember right, if they... Actually, I have no idea, but I feel like if they reclassed out of their base class, they no longer have access to the stones, making them kind of similar to the Awakening Dragons, Awakening Manaketes. But again, I don't have the DLC, so I don't have any personal experience with them. I have played every single Fire Emblem game. I have used most units. But I will still state that the things I have not used and things I have not played, I will give that caveat to say, I might not know what I'm talking about. Someone in the comments might know more. And then, Corin and Kana, why are they here on this list? Honestly, because I feel like them being a dragon or being a Manakete has very little to do with their abilities, frankly. And so I'm going to put them here instead of trying to tier them, because otherwise I'm trying to tier an avatar MC who can be any class against Manaketes, and that doesn't feel fair to me. So that's why they're on the why are you on this list tier list. So getting into the rest of them, what do I mean by these? Incredible specialists, solid generalist, decent specialist, mediocre generalist, actually useless. I have all the Manaketes from all their different versions from every game up here, and then I will explain what I mean and what I feel about them and why they are where I put them. And then we can discuss at the end. I say discuss as if you're talking to me directly. If you have any comments or complaints, leave them in the comments or chat to me at Discord. If you hear my daughter in the background, that's fine. She's supposed to be napping. She just likes to giggle and scream to herself sometimes, because toddlers be like that. Anyway, also, big thank you to channel members C2 Peekily, Enigmatic Mr. L, let's see if I remember the list off my head. The Big Herman 007, NKO Rico, and Bro Duderman for supporting the channel. If you want to have your name read off every single video like them and get access to stuff like all my scripted videos early, or I have some member Q&A videos I've been doing that are members only, you can subscribe and join the channel for just less than $1 a month. If not, that's totally fine. No pressure. Now, let's work our way from the top down to the bottom so we can get the good stuff out of the way. Incredible specialists. What do I mean by this? These are units who really have one specific job. They can do other jobs all right, but they have one specific job they do, and they do that exceptionally well. For the most part, that's killing dragons. These units are Fire Emblem 1 Tiki, Fire Emblem 3 Book 1 Tiki, Fire Emblem 8 Myrrh, Fire Emblem 11 Tiki, Fire Emblem 11 Nagi, Fire Emblem 12 Tiki. So what do I mean by incredible actually, maybe... Maybe that Tiki I put in a decent specialist. I feel like I just threw all the Tikis on together. Didn't think about it. Yeah, I'm going to say decent specialist for FE12, and I'll get back to that. So, incredible specialists. These units kill dragons, or in Mer's case, monsters. They kill them very, very well. They basically one-shot them all the time, and they have solid defenses against them. In FE1 Tiki's case, this is not strictly true, but she has massive defense boosts from her Dragonstone, and so she basically acts like she's capped defense all the time. FE3 Tiki's case, her Dragonstone allows her to actually utilize her defense to resist enemy dragon damage, which is not true of human units in FE3. FE3 dragons deal full damage to human units, kind of like they do in, like, Engage, just defense bypassing damage. FE8 Mer, again, massive defense, massive resistance, massive defense growth especially, and I think it's like an 18 or 20 base damage Dragonstone, something absurd, allowing her to effectively one-shot every enemy, including the final boss if she gets a crit, pretty much from base, and then leveling her up just power boosts her defense and HP so she can enemy phase more reliably. FE11 Tiki kills Medius. FE1 Tiki, actually really interesting. FE1 Tiki kills Medius's bodyguard, who is not affected by... who has max defense and is not affected by the falchion, and so you need just some other really high base power weapon to kill, because the falchion in FE1 is only effective against Medius. So Tiki kills the max defense, max HP bodyguard of Medius, and then Marth kills Medius. FE11 Tiki, it's kind of the other way around. Falchion is decent enough that you can use it to kill most dragons, if you have a trained Marth. If not, then, you know, you just don't bother with it. But Tiki deals massive damage against Medius, and so is used to kill the final boss, particularly on harder difficulties where it takes a unit with like max defense or max speed to survive a round of combat against Medius. So Tiki does that. Tiki does great, and Nagi does that as well if you don't have Tiki. Incredible specialist. Yes, they only really kill one enemy, but that one enemy is a very important enemy to kill. Solid generalists. We have FE3 Bantu. I think both forms. It looks like his portrait doesn't change between books. FE3 Book 2 Tiki, and then the Awakening Dragons, Noe, Na, and Awakening Tiki. Solid generalist, I say. They have 1-2 range access, they have decent bulk, they can do quite a bit on the maps they're available for. FE3 Book 2 Tiki also has the ability to use other Dragonstones if you use Warp to buy them from the secret shop in her Join chapter. And they fly around, have 1-2 range, have decent bulk, and just kind of generally fight enemies and do what you need to. They have effective damage against other dragons, aside from Bantu, who only is effective against ice dragons, who are in return effective against him, so that's dangerous. And then with Awakening, you get the Wormbane skill at, I believe, level 15 Manakete, which then only applies if it's a Manakete. By the way, if there's any weird sounds from the music, I'm going to try to skip it, but I have low Fire Emblem 3 playing in the background. Yeah. The Awakening Dragons, similar to the FE3 Dragons in that they have 1-2 range, are very, pretty solid at what they do, but they're not going to be, like, brokenly overpowered and trashing everything. If I remember right, Tiki's not super effective against Medius, the final boss, at the end, or if she is, it's, like, almost negligible. No, negligible. A lot of units can deal damage to Medius, the final boss of FE3 Book 2. And while there are dragons, there aren't maps that are filled solely with dragons. And so her abilities as a divine dragon are less useful because there are other enemy types mixed in. FE3 Book 2 has far more enemy types, enemy variety, and enemy mixes on chapters than FE3 Book 1. Yeah, so those ones are solid generalists. I hope that makes it clear why I'm putting them there. Decent specialist. I'm putting FE1 Bantu, FE6 Faye or Fa, and then FE12 Tiki, FE12 Nagi, primarily because of like availability issues with Nagi, and she doesn't have, and even though she's effective against dragons, again, it's not like she's so effective that she one-shots the final boss without help, at least. And because the final chapters where she's even available aren't just dragons and are full of other difficult enemies as well, she has more of a hard time. Same thing with Tiki. If you're on the hardest difficulty, you don't even get warp, so you can't get the special dragon stones. Not that the special dragon stones are super useful. Flying Wyvern can be fun, but Tiki doesn't really have the base stats to make a very solid Flying Wyvern, and they don't have the defense necessary to really give her the ability to survive a lot of enemies on enemy phase. So while it's fun, and you can find some niche uses for a 10-move Flying Wyvern, I don't think FE12 Tiki's the best option for that. Or 12 move, however much move they have. FE6 Faye, I'm going to call her both, I guess. FE6 Faye, she has really good resistance, and so she's a great status staff magnet. However, she has very poor HP and speed, so, and on maps where she's trying to bait out status saves, you usually also have to contend with bolting sages, and bolting sages will double her and most of the time one-shot her without some stat booster investment or several kills worth of experience fed to her. And she only has 30 uses, so if you are feeding her kills, you have to be really careful. And then by endgame, she's not one-shotting or one-rounding the dragons because of her bad speed, so she's not doubling. And then the dragons have like 70 plus HP, she's not going to be one-shotting. Still a decent specialist, still plays important roles in a good run of FE6, but is not like super game breaking. I would not consider Fa to be game breaking, and oftentimes consider her more of a liability than an asset. And then FE1 Bantu I have here purely for the sake of he has massive defense and can cheese that even further with the promotion item glitch, where if you use a promotion item on a Manakete, they don't promote, but they gain their Dragonstone bonus as, like, on top of their base stats, as if they had transformed. But then that's just on top, and you can stack that infinitely. So I think with Bantu, he gets plus 9 defense, and Tiki gets plus 11 from her Divine Stone, but I don't remember those numbers exactly. But basically, you can make Bantu have effectively infinite defense as much as you want. You can put him as basically a movable wall. Enemies will completely ignore him if they can't deal damage. Yeah. FE1 Bantu, decent specialist. He provides a role that no one else in your army really does because of that glitch. And then even if you're not abusing the glitch, he's still okay as, like, dragon, but I guess that is then he's closer to an armor knight in that aspect and would probably go down to mediocre generalist. So with glitch, decent specialist; without it, mediocre generalist. Speaking of mediocre generalist, this is FE11 Bantu. Bantu's going to be showing up quite a bit here, as you can see. He is usable, but just barely. Dragonstones have a finite number of uses, and Dragonstones have a finite number of uses. The bonuses they give him aren't that great, and his growths are still his FE1 growths, so they are terrible, and he can't reclass, and so he's stuck in a terrible class with no bases, basically surviving only off of Fire Dragon stats. Pretty bad, but I can't put him in actually useless because that's FE12 Bantu, who you get him, he doesn't even have his Firestone. You have to go backwards on a map where you are being chased towards the exit to get his Firestone, and then once he has his Firestone, he still fails to reliably do anything to the enemies. One, because he's locked to 1 range, and a lot more enemies in FE12 have 2 range than 1 range. 2, because his stats are still basically just as terrible as Zephy 11 stats, but the enemies have higher stats. And 3, if you're playing on a higher difficulty, he actually gets one-rounded. There's no enemies he can fight that he takes a counter from that he survives. Actually useless. I am so sorry, Bantu, but you really got screwed over. So that is my thoughts basically on every individual Manakete in the series and where I would rank them in terms of like how useful I feel they are. I feel like Manaketes definitely do still have a place in Fire Emblem. I think that place is somewhere here, or should be somewhere here, where the bulk of these dragons are. I think that modern uses for Dragon Stones kind of don't really feel like Manaketes to me. They feel like they're just like, oh, let's have this fun option, and that's a viable way to use Dragon Stones. But I call it, okay, using a Dragon Stone as a separate weapon, not really feeling like a true Manakete. Which is why I didn't really mention them, and I only gave Fates kind of a small mention in terms of how they use it, and I could have included Engage with Fates based on how it uses its Dragon Stones. I feel like dedicated Manaketes should still exist and can still play a purpose, but in order to do that, Intelligent Systems needs to commit to the bit and say, hey, you're a Manakete, that's all you're going to be, and then they're forced to make Manaketes interesting, like useful in an interesting way, and I don't necessarily trust their ability to do that right now. I could be wrong, I could be proven wrong, but based on the last couple games and my experience of them, my experience of their commitment to customization over like actual unit uniqueness and unit feel, I'm gonna say that I don't believe Manaketes will ever make a true return. They might be a facsimile of Manaketes, but I don't necessarily trust them to be the Manaketes that I came to know and love. But that's also just me. What are your thoughts? Again, leave them in the comments or in Discord. Thank you so much for watching, and this is Mythical Zenith signing out.